In Modular Three's video this week, we are asking the question, in what ways could you vary your teaching technique to ensure that you're reaching all of the various learning styles that you may have in your classroom? We're going to have a bunch of different ways that the students learn. Some of the students are visual learners, some are auditory learners, some are verbal, some are kinetic. There is different ways to reach all of these. We can utilize, by understanding this, different tools in our class. I think we have to go in and not only just stand in the front and lecture to our students, but lecture, by all means. This will help our auditory students in the class. But also put something visual up. Put up a PowerPoint or a video. That will help our visual students. Our verbal students, let them take notes. Give them ways that they can do that. These students tend to like to work alone. They're kind of best when they're in their own little world doing their thing. Doesn't mean they can't work in groups, but they do learn better when you're teaching the lesson. The other ones would be kinetic learners, who tend to do a lot more hands-on, touchy-feely. Gives them something physical to sink their teeth into. Concept maps and projects tend to work best for them. They tend to work better in groups. I think when we teach any lesson in our class, we cannot use just one version of teaching skills. I think we also need to be very aware that all our kids are not going to get everything out of our lesson, and they all learn at different times. The information will sink in different times, and we have to try to facilitate them to get the best out of them. So that might mean doing things like, by all means, lecturing, put a video up, watch a video with them. Also do PowerPoints, create a project with our kids in the class. Have them do concept maps, pull it all together, have them work together, create poems, create songs. And I know we have a joke about it, but do like a interpretive dance. I know some of my professors have asked that, and it's been kind of cute. But yeah, things like that. Allow the students to show you their knowledge, how they best show it, not what works best for me. This isn't really about me and my information. It is in the sense that I have to teach the information, but I already know this information. How can I better teach it to my kids? The best way on the mark of showing how I've taught well is to have my students then repeat back to me and show me through them teaching the class what they learned from me. Did you really learn all this by yourself? Did you have to go out and figure this out? Or did I actually manage to reach every one of your reaching styles, your learning styles, that now you can repeat it back to me? Chapter 6 did a really good job in showing what the expectations should be for teachers. They also gave me an insight into different ways that I can look at teaching my students, not just by standing in front of them talking. The other question we were asked, there was 5 other questions. The one I picked was, what are graphic organizers and how could you use them to present concepts in your subject area of teaching? And how do graphic organizers work for children? Graphic organizers, personally, I love the concept map since I learnt the concept map. I love that, especially in history, it will pull the information together. On a timeline, you can do dates and places and cities and works of art, people, put them on a timeline so that you can actually see visually where and when you're talking about, and maybe connect points together that you might not have connected before. I think in history it works really well. Pretty much any of the areas of history. If I'm talking about great leaders of the world, were there similarities between Russian leaders and Chinese leaders? I think you can get a better understanding of that by working a concept map. I think it helps to just organize everything. It's one of the first things I will teach my students in my class, is how to do some type of mapping system. Just to try to, if not for them building their knowledge, just to organize them. Even within English, this is a really good way to figure out a concept in English, figure out literature in English, figure out how works of art interject. Pick poems. If I'm reading poems, what type of authors are the same? You can draw it all together with things like concept map. How does it better help students? I think it really helps them in organising their thoughts. Sometimes you've got so much information in your head and you can't get all the information out, and it's easier to look at a concept map, whichever way you've done it. Some can be colourful. I know I like to kind of colour coordinate them. But yeah, I think that helps students, and I think sometimes students just need the tools. They maybe have all the knowledge and the smarts in their brains, but they haven't quite figured out how to get it out. They've brought all the information in, so their interpretation of the information is wonderful, but actually getting the information out to allow the teachers and other people around them to know and understand what they've learned and how they learned it, that can be difficult. Things like different types of concepts, concept maps or graphic organizer, and there's many different types of graphic organizer out there. There's not just one. I'm kind of using the concept map because that's kind of one that I use, but there are a lot out there. But I think at the end of the day, you have to know your student. You have to know what works best for your student. First, identify what type of learner they are. Are they visual, auditory, verbal, kinetic? Also learn about their learning environment. What is the best learning environment for the student that I'm actually teaching? Their social and ethnic and their cultural. All of that comes into play when we're teaching our student. Rural, suburban, urban, all of this comes into play, and I think we have to be very aware of that when we teach our students. And at the end of the day, we're social workers. You need to learn your students to be able to teach them the best way you can.